You ever build something from scratch just to watch someone else take credit, then kick you out like you were the intern? That's what happened to me. Except I didn't walk away empty-handed. I walked out owning the very vendor that kept their whole machine running. They just didn't know it yet. My name is Marcus Vale. I'm 39 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the Chief Strategy Officer at Langford Systems. When I joined, the company was limping along with an $8 million valuation, outdated processes, and a revolving door of upper management. I was supposed to be the guy who cleaned up the mess. What I became was the architect of its resurrection. I negotiated our first seven-figure partnership, revamped our go-to-market engine, and forged an exclusive pipeline deal with a mid-tier distributor that eventually scaled us to $60 million. I put in the kind of hours you don't talk about publicly. Nights where your dinner is vending machine peanuts and your pillow is a Slack notification. I believed in the company even when I had no reason to. And maybe that was my first mistake, confusing loyalty for leverage. Everything shifted the day they brought in Ava Moreau. She walked in like a Vogue editorial come to life, impeccable in posture, polished in tone, and every sentence she spoke wrapped in soft diplomacy. Ava wasn't a leader. She was a sculptor, carving her future one political play at a time. The board loved her, called her a new kind of executive. I saw right through it. She had the resume of a turnaround queen, but she wasn't here to fix anything. She was here to replace people like me. The signs were subtle at first. Meetings I used to lead were now co-hosted. Approvals I used to give were reviewed by her office. My roadmap presentations, crafted line by line through sleepless nights, were repackaged with her branding and delivered with applause. I played along, thinking maybe this was just onboarding friction. I even congratulated her when she made her first public keynote, told myself I could still be part of this. Then came the all hands. The room was packed. Over 150 team members filled the main hall, plus another 100 on Zoom. Ava stood at the podium, smooth as ever, talking about strategic realignment and new chapters. I'd heard that language before, the kind that sounded like inspiration until it gutted you from the inside. She smiled toward me, just briefly, then turned to the team. Before we wrap up today, I want to acknowledge someone who's played a huge role in our growth, she said, motioning toward me like I was a guest speaker. Marcus Vale helped take Langford from the brink of irrelevance to a market leader. His contributions can't be overstated. I nodded once, polite. And with that, we're saying goodbye. Marcus will be stepping away from Langford, effective immediately. We're grateful for his leadership, but we're headed in a new direction. I didn't even hear the rest. My ears were ringing, but not from shock, from restraint. I didn't lose it, didn't demand answers, didn't make a scene. I smiled, walked up to shake her hand, and said loud enough for the first few rows to hear, "I guess I'm not needed anymore." She didn't flinch. She was good. Too good. I left the building that day without a box. I didn't want their pens or paperweights, but what I did want, what I already had, was something far more valuable. 3 weeks before that meeting, I finalized a private acquisition through a holding firm. The target, Delta North, our main logistics vendor. Langford's dependency on them accounted for 70% of all physical product movement and infrastructure support. It was our quiet engine, the piece most of the board never bothered to understand. I did. I'd built that partnership. I knew the numbers, the weaknesses, and most importantly, the timing. Langford had just signed a quarterly contract with Delta North that locked them into volume-based pricing with auto-renew clauses triggered by order flow. And now, I held the ink on those terms. Ava Moreau thought she cut out a legacy player to make room for her new era. But what she really did was blindfold the only person who could see the cliff ahead. They thought they could run without me. Let them try. Because I wasn't just some ousted executive sulking on a beach somewhere. I was now the guy they had to call when the shipments didn't arrive. And when they did call, they wouldn't hear from Marcus Vale, the CSO. They'd hear from Marcus Vale, the owner. The silence was the best part. No press, no headlines, no dramatic LinkedIn post. I just disappeared from Langford's org chart and reappeared in full control of the one thing they couldn't operate without. I sat alone in my home office 2 days after the all-hands, sipping cold brew and flipping through the final acquisition paperwork. My lawyer, Damien, was on Zoom, meticulous as ever, cross-referencing every clause like he was hunting for typos in a ransom note. "These are rock solid, Marcus," he said, tapping his pen against the screen. The holding company's structure is clean. Your name never touches anything directly, and Delta North's leadership transition documents have all cleared. You're the beneficiary, quietly, completely. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. Then it's done. It's been done. What's next? That was the question, wasn't it? 3 months ago, I started sniffing around Delta North when I noticed Langford's procurement team couldn't get a straight answer out of them anymore. Shipping delays, miscommunications, fluctuating invoice terms. Most execs blamed the vendor. I blamed us. We were leaning too hard, too fast, and treating the one company holding up our physical infrastructure like they'd never notice. They noticed. So I made a few calls, quiet ones. The kind you make from a burner phone, using a name that isn't quite yours, but close enough to sound boring. I didn't offer to buy Delta North. I offered to rescue them. They were running lean, cash-tied, and exhausted from underpriced contracts. What they needed wasn't just capital. They needed vision. My pitch? Let me set up a holding company, restructure your board, and quietly acquire controlling interest, while you keep your brand and operations intact. No one asked if I worked for Langford. I never told them. We closed the deal in 30 days. I put in $3.2 million, mostly pulled from personal savings, and a silent partner I trusted more than most family. Damien built the corporate structure with layered trustees and offshore protections. Delta North became mine in every way that mattered, without a single NDA pointing back to me. Now, sitting in my office surrounded by blueprints, balance sheets, and contracts, I watched Ava's next moves with surgical detachment. Langford's Slack workspace hadn't booted me yet, which was sloppy but helpful. I saw the internal chatter, talk of a strategic restructuring, of pausing product launches, renegotiating with key supply partners. Ava was planning on cutting costs by pushing Delta North for more favorable terms. I almost laughed. She thought Delta North was still the same stretch-thin vendor desperate to stay on board. She thought I was gone, buried under some vague leadership transition headline. But while she was drafting new policies, I was about to draft new terms. Delta North's quarterly contract with Langford had just rolled over. Same volume expectations, higher market demand, and a quiet clause on delivery sequencing that Langford never noticed. That clause? It gave me full discretion to prioritize clients during overflow. They assumed that meant fairness. I knew it meant leverage. I picked up my phone and called Vanessa Torres, Delta North's COO, who now reported directly to me. "We're enacting contract structure B," I said. She paused. "You're sure?" "Effective immediately. All Langford shipments move to Tier 2 priority. Tell dispatch it's overflow only." She whistled low. "This'll raise some eyebrows." "Exactly," I said, then hung up. Contract structure B was a trigger I built into the agreement. Tiered fulfillment. It didn't breach terms. It just meant Langford's deliveries got deprioritized in favor of other clients who, by pure coincidence, had recently expanded their agreements with us. Ava would assume it was a system hiccup, until she saw the revised billing cycle. Then she'd panic. I stared out the window as a rainstorm started to roll in, dark clouds thick with pressure, fitting. My phone buzzed. Text from Damien. Ava's team just requested a renegotiation meeting with Delta North's legal. They're trying to push for net 60 payments. Perfect, I replied. Decline. Offer net 15. Premium rate. No exceptions. I didn't need to destroy Langford. I just needed to remind them what happened when you amputate your own spine. They made the mistake of cutting me out without asking what I took with me. What I took was control, not loudly, not with vengeance, but with surgical silence. Langford thought they were operating in isolation, but they were breathing through a pipeline I owned. And I was about to turn the valve. I signed the new contract with a pen they gave me on my last day at Langford. Funny, right? One of those branded metal ones they hand out at milestone anniversaries. For 10 years of dedicated service. Mine was still in the box. The updated Delta North agreement had everything Langford wouldn't expect and couldn't survive. Shorter delivery windows, steeper minimum order quantities, and net zero payment tolerance. They'd been coasting on familiarity for too long, treating their vendor like an in-house favor. But I was done letting them run lean on my back. The new terms went live Monday at 7 a.m. By 9:30, I'd already seen the first ripple. Vanessa, my COO at Delta North, stepped into my office holding her tablet like it was hot. Langford just failed their first fulfillment under the new minimums. They're locked out of next-day routing. Their procurement lead's trying to escalate. I didn't look up. Send them the contract, highlight clause 4.3, and let them know we're happy to renegotiate, with prepayment. She smiled. You're enjoying this? I'm enforcing terms, I said. Nothing more. By noon, a friend from inside Langford forwarded me a screenshot from their internal Slack. Ava had started a thread labeled Number Supply Chain Temp Glitch. She was downplaying the whole thing as a system error while scrambling in private to put out the fire. She hadn't even realized she was the one who lit it. Around 3 a.m., I sent the new vendor terms to a mid-level manager in operations anonymously. No explanation. Just a PDF and the words, "You should know what you're signing up for." That was the spark. By Tuesday, production timelines slipped. Fulfillment alerts hit dashboards. Project managers started reworking roadmaps in real time. The Slack thread changed names. Yaris Supply Chain Temp Glitch became Daksh Urgent Ops Blockers. A few brave employees began asking questions that didn't have safe answers. By Wednesday, shipments were missing. One team couldn't launch a major onboarding cycle because their support kits were stuck in routing limbo. I knew exactly which kits. I'd seen the box IDs. That afternoon, Langford's CTO posted a cryptic message in the executive Slack channel. Is this sabotage, or did someone sleep through contract season? 5 minutes later, he deleted it. By Thursday, Ava called an emergency board meeting. She didn't invite me, but someone else did. At 6:22 p.m., my phone rang. No caller ID. Marcus Vale? The voice said. Yes. This is Greg Hanley. I sit on the board at Langford. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling. What can I do for you, Greg? I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be straight. Did you know anything about this before you left? I paused just long enough. I know everything about it, I said. I own it. Silence. I could hear his breath catch on the other end. Excuse me? Delta North. I own Delta North now. I acquired it 3 weeks before Ava cut me loose. Another pause. I think you should come in, he said, quieter now. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to sit in that silence, feel the leverage in it. I'll think about it, I finally replied. But just so you understand, this isn't about revenge. This is about respect, something I was never given. He exhaled hard. She's not going to see this coming. She didn't see the last part coming either. When I hung up, I stared at my screen for a while, watched the Slack screenshots keep rolling in. One of them was from Ava herself. We're exploring alternative vendors. Delta North's behavior is unacceptable. That made me laugh. They'd built their empire on convenience, cut the person who understood the blueprint, and now wanted to rebuild mid-flight with no pilot. I didn't need to twist the knife. I just needed to let them bleed. That night, I updated the Delta North client portal with a new clause. All renegotiation requests from Langford Systems would now be subject to a pre-review phase. No urgency windows, no priority filters. Just a blank message that read, "Thank you for your inquiry. Your request has been added to our review queue. Please allow 7 to 10 business days for a reply." They took my job, I took the supply chain. Let's see who blinks first. The Langford boardroom hadn't changed. Same glass walls, same over-polished mahogany table, same faint scent of anxiety masked by too expensive cologne. The last time I was here, I sat near the head. Today they left me a seat dead center, flanked by silence. Ava was already there when I walked in. Tailored blazer, steel-colored heels, jaw clenched just tight enough to give her away. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked cornered. Still, she straightened, nodded, and gestured to the open chair like we were partners solving a mutual inconvenience. "Marcus," she said, cool as glass. "Thank you for coming." I didn't respond. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thin folder. No theatrics, no legal team, just facts. "Let's get to it," I said, placing the folder on the table in front of me. "You wanted to talk about Delta North." She tilted her head. "We want to understand what happened, how a core vendor suddenly rewrote our contract with no notice." I looked at her, then to the board members lining either side of the table. Most avoided eye contact. Greg Hanley, the only one who called me, sat near the end, expression unreadable. "No notice?" I asked. "I believe the terms were delivered per your protocol. You signed an agreement that allows Delta North to revise delivery windows, payment schedules, and volume tiers at their discretion during quarterly rollovers. You didn't read it, that's not my fault. You mean your vendor did, she snapped. I slid the folder across the table. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside, the corporate acquisition filings, the holding company chain, the time-stamped agreements, the conflict of interest disclosures, dated before my termination. Every page clean, every move legal. I mean me, I said. Her face didn't change much, but her breath did. Shorter, shallower. You're telling us you purchased Delta North while still working for Langford? One of the board members asked. No, I said. I acquired a controlling interest in Delta North through a third-party entity. I didn't violate any employment agreements, no non-compete, no IP crossover. I owned a vendor, your vendor. That wasn't illegal, it was just smart. Ava's jaw worked side to side. This is unethical. I leaned forward, resting my hands calmly on the table. You're right, it's unethical to terminate the person who built your operations without checking if he took the floorboards with him. You thought you were replacing me with someone who could talk prettier and cut costs faster. Turns out, you cut out the only person who understood how your house stayed upright. Her eyes narrowed. You manipulated this. No, I said. I anticipated this. Silence settled in like fog. No one moved. Papers sat untouched. A pen rolled halfway across the table, and no one caught it. Then Greg spoke. Are you open to renegotiating the terms? I didn't answer right away. I looked at Ava. Her posture was rigid, but the sweat along her collarbone betrayed her. That depends, I said finally, on who's running your company tomorrow. That landed hard. I saw one board member's head tilt, another clear his throat. Ava didn't speak. She just closed the folder, pushed it gently back toward me, and stood. You can't blackmail a company, she said, voice low. I'm not, I replied. I'm giving your board a choice. Stick with you and bleed out under a contract you never read, or remove you and sit down with me to rebuild something that might actually survive. She looked at the board. None of them met her eyes. You're bluffing, she whispered. I stood too. You fired me before reading the chessboard. That's not leadership. That's hubris. I collected the folder, tucked it back into my case, and turned to leave. As I reached the door, Greg's voice followed behind me. Marcus, if we make a change, you'll sit down with us? I paused. I'll do better than that, I said. I'll make sure you still have a company to sit in. Then I walked out, leaving behind only silence, and a CEO with her name already fading off the door. The view from my new office stretches across the river, steel bridges, cranes in motion, the skyline breathing. I kept the decor minimal, just glass, light, and silence. After everything, I didn't want noise. I wanted clarity. It's been 6 months since the board at Langford made their decision. The announcement was public but polite. Ava Moreau had resigned to pursue other ventures. No drama, no blame, just corporate language for being removed before the market noticed the rot. The board installed a crisis CEO from outside, competent, experienced, a quiet surgeon for a public wound. They asked if I'd return, sit on the board, advise the new leadership, help clean up what she left behind. I said no. I wasn't interested in salvaging what someone else broke. I was building something new. My new holding company, Thornbridge Group, started as a shell entity for Delta North. But after the Langford fallout, things accelerated. 3 of their competitors reached out within a month, looking for stable supply partners. I didn't pitch, I didn't sell, I just listened, and when they asked what we could offer, I gave them what Langford never valued: consistency, accountability, and operational foresight. Now, Thornbridge supplies 4 companies in the space. Langford is one of them. They don't have a choice. The market's consolidated, and I own the bottleneck. Their new leadership pays invoices on time. They send thank you emails. They treat us like a partner now, like I always should have been treated. Sometimes I wonder if they even realize who's behind the curtain. Probably not. Only a few key players know my name sits on the founding documents. I prefer it that way. Influence is more powerful when it doesn't need a spotlight. Last week, a press outlet published a profile on Thornbridge's growth. The headline read, "The Quiet Rise of Supply's New Architect." They didn't use my photo. They didn't need to. The right people knew. This morning, as I was reviewing quarterly projections, my inbox pinged. No subject line, no sender name I recognized immediately. But I knew. It was from Ava. Just one sentence. "You played me." I stared at the screen for a long moment, not out of spite, not even satisfaction, just reflection. She had every advantage: title, backing, timing. She walked into that company thinking she was above the foundation, forgetting that someone had to pour the concrete first. And when she swept me out, she didn't even ask what I'd built underneath. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I hit delete. Then I opened the leather-bound journal that lives in my desk drawer. I don't write in it often, just when something matters. Today mattered. I picked up the same pen they gave me when I hit my 10-year mark at Langford, the one I used to sign the contract that changed everything. I flipped to the last page and wrote, "She fired me thinking I was done, but I was the one writing the contracts. And now, my name's on every line she never read." I closed the journal and leaned back in my chair. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, catching the river in gold. Phones buzzed, Slack chimed, people moved. But in that moment, I didn't hear any of it. Not because I'd won, but because I'd written my ending. Not in fury, not in noise, just in ink. And this time, the final word was mine.